I'm going to play another clip for you here. It involves Fox News because recently they did a weird thing on Fox and Friends on the weekend. And I want to show you this clip. And here's the thing. All TV shows have sponsors. You see them in the advertisements. And it's always interesting to see like what ads play on Fox, what plays on MSNBC, what plays during, the NCAA tournament. But sometimes if you pay extra money, you can get like Fox to just sponsor your thing on air and talk about how awesome your product is. And someone did that recently. And I'm just going to play the clip so you could see how that played out for yourself.
There we go.
I agree with both. And here we go. We have more Fox and Friends coming up. But you know what? This is a transition for transitions if you've ever had one.
So Fox and Friends.
This is very Fox and Friends. So ready your heart. It's the 5th Sunday of Lent, and our prayer series continues with a reading of prayer from the Hallow app. We all need it. Let's do it this morning. Close your eyes, if you would. Bow your head. Jesus, today we begin the holy period of Passion.
I can't listen to any more of that. He then reads a very long prayer. Fox and Friends was literally sponsored by prayer. And then they stopped what they were doing to bow their heads in prayer. It's wacky. It's weird. And maybe you saw this in the Chiron. This was sponsored by the Hallow app. And so we'll talk about that in a second. But again, if there's one thing Jesus ever told Christians to do when it comes to prayer, apparently it's to do it in public, where on TV, where everyone can watch you do it, and definitely not in private, even though that's literally a Bible verse. One commenter online put it this way: we interrupt the bearing of false witness for a moment of packaged prayer. Hilarious. And then after they were done saying the prayer, fully inspired by God, they continued to spread more lies and poison the brains of the most ignorant Americans in the country. And look, it's one thing, it's not entirely weird to do a live read for a product, even though I happen to think that seems better suited for a conservative podcast or any podcast. Like, I've done live reads for brands on my podcast, so I'm not even knocking that. Companies want money, and if someone wants to pay them to do something that seems to fall in line with what they say anyway, I get it. That's capitalism for you. Love it or hate it, whatever. But the thing that was really interesting to me is the way they had that fine print of that this prayer is sponsored by the Hallow app. Because how many people are reading the Chirons when it comes to that prayer you just saw? It would be very easy for someone to think, oh, this is nice. On Fox and Friends, they're just praying in the middle of their show. Like it's an organic thing that just happened out of nowhere, when it absolutely was not. And this is interesting because a few years ago, Fox and Friends also did this for Ark Encounter. They did a 3-minute segment about how awesome Ark Encounter was. And there was no indication that Ark Encounter paid for this segment, but I looked this up later because I was very curious about this. Fox and Friends posted this on Facebook years ago, and you can track their advertisements, and you could see in this ad, it was a paid partnership. You could see this in the red circle at the top. And if you click on the paid partnership, I want more information, it said in the fine print, it was paid for by Ark Encounter. Like Ark Encounter, the Creation Museum people, they paid Fox and Friends to advertise the Noah's Ark theme park. And then if you went to Ark Encounter's Facebook page at that time, they were like, you guys, Fox and Friends did a whole segment about how awesome we are. Can't buy that kind of publicity, except we did. Like it's the deception that's so intriguing to me here. That was interesting. So this is what they're doing with prayer now. And let me talk about that Hallow app for a second, because again, I don't think most people saw it. It's not even the first time they've done something like this, because a month ago on Ash Wednesday, they also ran another segment to tout the popularity of Hallow. This is on Facebook now as well. And look at this. They did a whole segment about how Hallow sees downloads surge after a Super Bowl ad. this app that tells people to pray, they did a Super Bowl ad and then everyone started downloading it. And now we're going to do a segment about how popular this Catholic prayer app is. But look at the fine print underneath that headline. Can you see it? This segment is made possible by our sponsor, Hallow. Hallow paid for the segment that talks about how popular Hallow is, which you would not need to pay for if it was actually popular. Okay, my point is clear there, I think. But this is what they did. What is the Hallow app, by the way? And in that segment, one thing you could see in the headline on Facebook, Mark Wahlberg and Jonathan Rumi have an Ash Wednesday message. Like they appeared on the network, the actor Mark Wahlberg from like Ted and Jonathan Rumi, who I think is in The Chosen, which is that Jesus show, they were in that segment to talk about how they appeared in the Super Bowl ad and how awesome this app was to help them pray. And at no point during that segment did it really say Hallow was sponsoring their appearances on the show, which I think is interesting. But if you're wondering, Mark Wahlberg, why is Mark Wahlberg, of all people, sponsoring or taking part in this thing? Well, let me take you to the New York Times article all about it. Here we go. Let me show you this. A prayer app turns to TikTok to find its flock. Oh, look at that. It's Mark Wahlberg and Jonathan Rumi with their Ash Wednesday things on their appearance on Fox and Friends. But let me scroll down here for a moment. Hallow raised $40 million in 2021 and counts the tech billionaire Peter Thiel and Senator J.D. Vance, Republican of Ohio, among its investors. By the way, it says elsewhere in here, Mark Wahlberg, did it say, is also a significant investor. I forgot where that was, but it is in here somewhere. But look at this, full access to the app. If you want an app to keep track of your prayers, it costs $69.99 a year. Because otherwise, how are you going to pray? You're going to pray for free? What are you, a freak? And an on-screen numerical ticker notes the number of prayers prayed with Hallow. And in recent days, it was 427 million, which is a big number that means jack shit because prayers don't do anything. So you're keeping tab on a thing you just made up to begin with. It doesn't make any sense whatsoever. Here we go. This Super Bowl ad featured Mark Wahlberg, who has a significant ownership stake in Hallow. So, like, it all comes full circle. That's why they're doing all this. By the way, I just found this funny. You know the name of the CEO of Hallow? His name is Alex Jones. And he wants you to know he's not that Alex Jones. He's just another guy who wants to take money from very gullible people. Look, ultimately, it shows you again, Christianity is a business. All they did is they found a new way to target religious conservatives willing to give them money for something they could totally do for free. And somewhere, I'm sure there's a church leader mad they didn't think of this idea first. But it's just like that He Gets Us campaign I mentioned earlier. It's $100 million for ads on social media and in the Super Bowl to just get people to think about Jesus and go to the website, which will direct them to a church. Like, they have $100 million budget for what? It's to steer people toward religion, like to promote the idea of God. And when you're promoting prayer or you're promoting God, and you don't mention the very real threat of Christian nationalism, since that is very much the kind of Christianity that is being pushed here, it's like a junk food company telling you to eat up without any mention of how their products will make you sick. Like, I'm sure you have money to promote it, but can we talk about what it is you are promoting? Because prayer is not good for people in and of itself. Prayer doesn't need advertisers, but religion is a very useful tool for separating gullible people from their money. And they have a perfect vehicle in Fox to get away with it too. So, partnership made in hell. You know what? I should correct one thing. I said prayer is totally useless. If you believe in prayer and you want to pray because it brings you peace of mind, I believe there are scientific studies that have shown that will totally help you, but it's no different from like meditation. But if I'm praying for a stranger somewhere else, that will not help that has had no effect. There are studies that have shown that has absolutely no effect. So if the idea of meditation or prayer, that might bring you some comfort, but if you're praying for somebody else, then you're all wasting your time. All right, let's talk questions here. What else do we have as we look through some stuff? And I'm going to pull up a couple other things while we do this and close a million tabs, which feels lovely. The Bless app, 10,000 plus downloads. That's it. Release 2021, rating 3.4, reviews 64. That seems unusually small for an app that seems to be this big. Now I wonder if we're looking at the same thing. And I know we're talking about the Bless Every Home app, not this story, but a previous one. But that still seems relatively low for people who have millions and millions of dollars to spend on this. Interesting. Thank you for sharing that. You should do a show teaching us how you do research. I would like it. Anybody? I mean, I can answer that for you right now. I follow a lot of news websites, and if there's something about religion that I think I can add commentary to, or I want to bring to wider attention, I might write about that. Sometimes I always appreciate this. If people who watch me on this live stream or people who read my website, if they see something locally that they think deserves more coverage, they will send me those links, and I check them all out. And again, sometimes the articles are just great on their own. There's not much for me to add, and I can just share them. But if I feel like they're not saying enough, or they talk about something, but there's an angle I want to talk about, that's when I will try to cover it for myself, because maybe I want to understand it. Maybe I want to bring it wider exposure to the extent that I can. And at that point, I will try to collect as much information about the story as I can from different sources, try to synthesize everything I've read, and then try to share it with all of you in a way I hope makes sense. Don't always succeed at that, but that's kind of my aim. So if you have any specific questions, feel free to ask. But thank you for asking that.